We are privileged to be joined by Rabbi Label Lam. It feels like raising children these days is more challenging than ever before. Devices, mental illness, rampant immorality in the secular world have created unprecedented struggles for parents. And here to discuss this is a chinuch and parenting expert. Rabbi Lam is a mentor to the Mentors for Partners in Torah, which has thousands of participants. He gives parenting lectures. He's the principal of the Munkat Yeshiva, and he has a popular daily 1-minute video. Rabbi Lam, it is such a privilege to have you here.
Okay. Thank you very much, Rabbi. Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate
absolutely. And we're going to try to cover a bunch of what I think fascinating topics. I'm going to start with like a really broad question because I want to focus on education, yeshiva, chinuch. And I always felt like there's something which seems like a little bit of a clash, which is academic success, something I'm a big fan of academic success, and versus a child just being happy and a child just feeling a little bit carefree. And I'm sure there's not a real contradiction, but to me, it's always been like, the more pressure we exert, maybe the child will be more successful and build skills and, do very well in yeshiva. And maybe that even helps with confidence, but then maybe the kid is not very happy feeling this kind of constant pressure. So I'm sure that's a loaded question, but what are your thoughts about that?
They don't have to. I think your instinct is right. It doesn't have to be a conflict, but sometimes it is a conflict. There's two parts to a person. There's a goof and then there's an neshama. And there's two parts to a child. There's an intellect of the child, and there's the emotions of the child. And both of them have to be humming. Both of them have to be harmonizing. And if a child is doing well intellectually and he's doing well academically, but he's not doing well emotionally, he's not feeling like he's connecting with friends, he's not feeling that, he has a connection with his Rebbe or, with his family members. So it's a bigger risk. Even if he knows a lot, it's a tree that's top heavy, and it's only a matter of time, before a wind could blow and destabilize everything, all the academic accomplishments. So for a young kid, he should have a happy feeling. If anything, that's I think that's the emphasis is more on producing a happy child, even if he's not academically a giant and a genius. But he's feeling good about whatever he's doing. He's feeling good about himself, about his connections, his relationships, those type of things. So both of them have to be treated and have to be nourished. What can I say?
Right. I guess my question then is on a practical level, and no, it makes a lot of sense. I guess number one, there may be if a child's not successful in yeshiva, let's just say. There's different levels of success, obviously, but there could be times when it causes confidence issues, or maybe the child is not going to be happy, for the lack of academic success. I understand. I have kind of like Nagias here, like I said, I think nowadays the trend has become, I think, anecdotally more to like child to just be more carefree, just let kids if you get the kid through yeshiva and he's on the derech and he's a happy erlich boy, or girl, then that becomes more, that's a very successful child in and of themselves. I'll tell you a story. This happened with one of my sons. He told me this years later, in 7th and 8th grade, he really pushed himself. He tried to be matziach in learning Gemara. And, at one point he said to me years later, he said, you put a lot of pressure on me. And now I'm not the perfect parent. I have a lot of flaws. I always tried not to exert too much negative pressure. He said, you put a lot of pressure on me. I said, I said, what did I do? This is fascinating to me. He says, when I was in 8th grade, remember you told me that if I get over a 90 on a Gemara test, you'll buy me a schnitzel sandwich. He said, and I was blown away. And I said, you felt like that was like negative, and he said, you know how that made me feel. He's very honest. We're very close about it now. We talk very open about it. I think he doesn't mind me saying it. But the fascinating part, after I thought about it for a while, I realized it wasn't the offer of the reward, which I thought was a good move on my part. It was actually, he sensed that I was like pressuring him. He sensed how important it was to me. And it was a real lesson for me.
Right. When kids sense that we have an agenda, the Chovos HaLevavos can show you inside in Shar B'Tachon. He says for success in relationships with people, he says the agenda is to have no agenda except what's good for that person. And sometimes, and we have to study and try to find out what does this person really need, not what I want them to be, even if it looks like it's something that's good for them. In Kiruv, that's why I shy away. I've been involved with what they call Kiruv for the last almost 40 years. But the word itself sounds very packed with an agenda that you have to produce a product, and a child is not a product. And sometimes we look at our kids like, my kid has to, he has to shine, he has to excel, he has to be in the top 10%, he has to go to this yeshiva that's going to give me a good name, forget about what's good for him. Once the kid feels that you want something for him that maybe he doesn't necessarily want or want for himself, then already like people get nervous. Like when you meet a salesman in a store and he's selling you something, and it's like, I don't want that. I am looking for a couch, and you keep on pointing me towards a dining room set or something like that. And he pops up behind every piece of furniture. I said, I'm just browsing, and yet, so at that point, you say, I'm just going to leave the store. When kids sense that the parents have an agenda, even a holy agenda, you're going to be my nachas, you're going to be my Talmud Chacham, I'm going to go to, you're going to be a doctor, used to be doctor, lawyer, engineer, but now you're going to go and you're going to be my Talmud Chacham, even the kid feels like, I don't know if I'm going to be living up to your expectations. I have to do what's right for the kid, what his next step is, what's important for him. Right? So I hear, yeah.
And a holy agenda is the easiest to justify and rationalize, because look what I'm trying to do here. And you're right, the child can sense they're a project, they're a trophy.
Right. So whatever their next need is, and it's for their good. If we know it's something for their good, then you can even have a rough conversation and a straight conversation. But if they think it's for your good, it's a benefit. The salesman says, "Can I help you?" But when he says "you," he means help me. He's looking forward to a commission. Then all of a sudden, that's where the trust flies out the window.
Right.
But he says, if then unqualified statement, if your person will have just to do what's right for that person, because that's his avodas Hashem. He says Hashem will put your praise in their mouth, and you'll succeed in this world and the next world. If a person has an agenda, he says, then it will not succeed in this world, and the person will have, cashed out, in that bad adventure in this world and the next world. He won't have a scar for himself in the next world either, because it was not l'shem shemayim, wasn't what Hashem wanted him to do. It was because he had something that he needed to accomplish for himself.
It's huge, and that is fascinating, and it's so true. Is there anything should Rebbeim have, now Rebbeim, they do so much, they go way above and beyond, and they don't get enough recognition, and I have such respect and admiration for the Mesiras Nefesh what Rebbeim do. The question I wonder, should they be trained in certain mental health issues? Should they be trained in certain emotional issues? I mean, there's so much anxiety, it feels like these days. There's ADHD, there's other common issues that kids may be struggling with. I worry that sometimes, and again, it's no fault of the Rebbe, but a child will act up, or a child will not be producing. And look, maybe it's on the parents, but maybe the Rebbe, if they could identify, okay, here's what the child's struggling with, instead of whether the Rebbe's being strict, or I've seen the opposite, where the Rebbe's just being lenient and say, you know what, all right, the kid's acting up, the kid's misbehaving, the kid's not really focused. I'll just let it be, because they don't want to hurt the kid, which I respect a lot. But maybe they could kind of identify how to kind of deal with it and approach it. Or am I just asking, they already have way so much on their plates?
Right. So, I do think teachers and Rebbes would benefit from training in identifying, what's going on with the child. I remember when I came to be a principal in a school, the Rebbes wanted to know, like, what's your strike list? Like, when does he get suspended? Strike one, strike two. I said, I don't even know what happened. Which kid are we talking about? What's going on with him? Kids can be acting up for any number of 1,000 different things. It could be the guy that's sitting next to him is annoying to them. It could be, there's something going on at home. It could be environmental. It could be environmental in school. It could be environmental at home. It could be temperament. It could be a lot of different things. So what we used to do is we had a group of people that were, studying kids, and we go into a class and we just take notes, and 5 different people park themselves in the class. And after a while, we'd be like furniture, and we don't have and nobody has any idea except maybe the teacher who it is that we're focusing on. And then we'd get together and collect our notes and say, what did you notice? I said, he wanted to raise his hand, but he didn't get called on. The teacher was looking there. You start to see all the different things. You see, he wanted to participate. And at some point he said, I'm just going to get up, and he walked out of the classroom. We put together a composite, like, what did you think of that? And then we start to realize that, what does he want? What's going on with him? A child is a complex, person. So just to make somebody, he's misbehaving, he's bad, he's wrong, that just to eliminate that first response of, bad behavior, bad kid, we're going to discipline our way out of this. Sometimes we have to understand or educate our way through a problem rather than discipline our way through a problem. So you have to figure out what's going on. If a kid is experiencing anxiety, it would be helpful if a Rebbe can identify, little simonim, signs that, it could be a touch of anxiety, and get help soon, rather than, write over 1,000 times, I will not talk in class, or something like that.
Right. And I want to
Yeah,
mention just some people who are more attuned to it than others. I met Rabbi who never took a course in their lives, meeting us
right.
at a course, and they just have a knack for understanding, being very intuitive, and others just don't have that. I mean, all the courses in the
Right.
world sometimes, yeah, and that's
Yeah, yeah.
that's how it goes.
Usually the ones who went through it themselves are the best ones at identifying it. And when I meet with young boys, or I meet with people that are struggling with these things, young boys who are even successful academically, but they're feeling anxiety, they're looking at what everybody else is doing, and they're getting nervous because they're not feeling confident, and they're not feeling, not that they're not feeling confident in the learning, but they're not feeling accomplished because they're looking what everybody else. They're used to comparing themselves to other people. So when we speak, I tell them, when you're going to learn to help yourself in this area, you're not just helping yourself. You'll when you will have fashioned the key to your own heart, and you'll understand how to relax and be calm about this situation, and to enjoy the ice cream that you're eating in front of you right now because you enjoy learning Torah. Then you will have them fashion the master key to help out thousands of other people, because you'll know what it feels like. You'll have the power of empathy, not just sympathy. You'll look at it. And I said, can you identify this feeling in other people? They said, yes. They have the direct insight. They can tell this guy. They can show me all the guys in the class that are going through the same thing that they're going through, because they know what it feels like. They know what it means. Somebody looked from the outside, said, he's just not studying. He's just at the, come on, get over it, focus, and you realize that that's not it. He knows what he's going through on the inside, and he knows the other people also intuitively who are going through the same thing. So once he's going to help himself, I said, now you're going to be a resource. You'll be able to help other people. Sometimes some of the best rebbeim are people that work these things out themselves.
Absolutely fascinating. And they wondered at the time why they're going through the struggle, and then years later, turns out to be able to benefit a lot of people. The rebbeim themselves, I mean. Shifting gears.
Somebody who went through something is he can give the course. Forget about taking the course. He is the course. Yeah.
Right.
I remember my wife and I, there was a Rebbe, a very, very popular Rebbe in the school. My kids went to elementary school, and everybody loved him. The kids who had him in second grade were following him around all the way through eighth grade. They were like he'd walk in the hallway. It was like an entourage of people following him around into the classroom. When they had a break, they would come and visit him. And he had a way of like interacting with every kid and looking, say, hey, I like your face, and I like you, he had like signature greetings for all the kids. And one of my wife's friends once asked him, how did you get to be so popular? What course did you take from Torah Masorah? What book did you read? Like, what's the secret? And he said, very simple. He said, all my life, he says, I went to yeshivas. He said, I never found a Rebbe that related to me the way that I needed to be related to. So I decided that I'm going to be that Rebbe that relates to students the way that I would like to have been related to. A Seilach Rav doesn't mean just get a Rebbe. It means sometimes you have to become the Rav yourself. Easy to complain and be cynical, but to turn it around and say, no, I'm going to be the solution. I'm going to be that Rebbe that I never had to everybody else, and it's phenomenal.
Beautiful, unbelievable story. All right, shifting gears a little to focusing on the in the home, the chinuch in the home and the family. I wanted to ask you about Shabbos meals, and curious if it's as broad. I've heard from different people. I've heard kind of different takes, but some people have told me that it's very common. I'll tell you a story again that happened, life-changing story happened to me and my wife. And my wife and I, we were mamish newly married, and we had a meal. There was a kollel guy in the neighborhood. They had a bunch of children, very nice people, very fine people, and they were their oldest child probably 10, 12 years old. They had a few children at the meal. And the meal took about 15 minutes, probably. The pregame warm up to the meal, which was the fighting over the chairs and who's going to sit where. And they were going on and on. And what struck my wife, when I was sitting there watching and all the machinations back and forth. And then afterwards, we don't say anything. Then afterwards, we leave the meal. We both look at each other. Again, we're literally married for a couple of months. And it was like, wow, how'd you think of the way they were kind of dealing? They were begging their children, and the children were totally owning it, and just the children were just bullying the parents. That was how we looked at it at the time. We're never going to do that. That was like the conversation. Okay, moved on. Years later, when we were going through the exact experience, trying our best to mollify each child and figure out a way, it's against physics, because you can't have every child in that same special chair, which last week they didn't even want. And we looked at each other, at one point, you remember that meal that we had when we thought the parents were crazy? It was like, whoa, like we've come full circle. And we realized the parents were 100% right. Like it wasn't even a question. Like, you got to get these. What are you going to do? Tell the kid, here, sit in. And again, on a broader scale, there's a lot of lessons I think to be learned, but I'm curious your take. But I feel like that this is a widespread problem. And I feel like a lot of times us parents think to ourselves, what am I doing wrong? And it's like, it's not just Shabbos meals, but that's kind of symbolic. And it's where everybody comes together. So with all that, what's your response? What are your thoughts?
Right. So as I'm listening, again, I get this. Here's my diploma over here, right? Baruch Hashem. Yeah, all of our kids are grown and out of the house, and now we're in the grandparenting business, and so we're watching our kids raise kids and doing a wonderful, amazing job, Baruch Hashem. But just looking at these scenes over here and visiting them in my own mind, we went through a lot of this stuff, and it occurs to me that most of the good parenting, like any other, like running a class or a school, is done in advance with planning, which means when things are happening spontaneously, it's almost like a teacher walks into a class without a lesson plan, and the kids know there's no lesson plan there. That means it's war, and if you haven't got a seating chart, and if you haven't got a lesson plan for a Rebbe, then even if you're the most entertaining speaker in the world and you're going to come tell stories about the Baal Shem Tov, but you haven't got a pointed lesson, you don't have a place where you're leading them, then kids already start to feel they become. I tell my another principal I'm working with, they become popcorn. Now everything's negotiable and everything can be discussed, and now you have to negotiate with everything about everybody. It becomes it becomes hefker. It becomes wild. And we're inviting that. But if things are set beforehand and they're discussed in advance when everybody's calm, so that's when most of the good stuff happens. And when something happens that's not correct, we can also correct it afterwards at a time that's not, in the moment of the pressure cooker. So if we can make up a seating arrangement beforehand with a team meeting on Erev Shabbos, on a Thursday night, we have a team meeting. Everybody sits on, the couches and the chairs around in a little circle. Okay, everybody, we used to have team meetings with our kids. And sometimes we'd have something fun, something entertaining, and sometimes we put out a good question. And then sometimes it had to do with practical things. Who was going to clear the table, and who was going to sit where, and who's going to sing what song. And someone advised us, Rabbi Herschel Mashinsky was a master mechanech here for 50 years at Yeshiva Spring Valley. He was a master. And I asked him, what do I do to keep my kids at the table? What can I do besides duct tape? What else might work?
Not everyone uses duct tape like me. Yeah, no.
Yeah. They say silence is golden, duct tape is silver. Which I came to understand, by the way, in a deeper way, because I saw a picture of somebody with that statement with silver duct tape across his mouth, and I said, realize that if somebody is silenced, gold is more expensive than silver. If a person quiets himself from the inside, it's more valuable, but than someone who has to be coerced into silence, through discipline. But wow, it's still worth silver. It's still worth something if a person gets the message and quiets himself down. But if he gets it by himself, then that's golden. Silence is golden. Duct tape is silver, even if it has to be mibachutz, if it has to be done in that way. So he advised to us something which set a beautiful temperament in the whole family, and that is to create. I mean, every family is different. My Shabbos table is not like your Shabbos table, and one Shabbos table one week is not like the Shabbos table the next week. He says, get a giant 3-ring binder, that you could put paper in, and create a scrapbook, a family scrapbook, and have it dedicated, a good part of it dedicated to Shabbos, where you're writing down what we ate and who served what and who said what before Shabbos, who's going to do what. Let's get it organized, and then afterwards, what guests we had and what they said and what was cute, and we're putting the parsha sheets instead of just throwing them out, finding out what to do with them and putting them in the shemus. We're collecting them, and we find that the kids weren't running away from the table. They were sitting, they were flipping through the book from previous weeks, and they were remembering stuff. And Shabbos became like we're adding to that book, adding to that family, that book of memories. We filled up 3 or 4 books like that.
Wow.
And it became amazing. This is our family, this is our culture. And guests came over and the kids were showing them when we had, what's his name? This one said that one and that one said that. And this was a quotable moment, and they're remembering and laughing. Shabbos is a time for creating and planting positive memories. So they want to be a happy part of that family culture and make a contribution to that book that continues from, he says, the Shamru v'nei Yisrael Shabbos, la sos es Shabbos adorasam. that we're not just keeping the Shabbos, we're keeping the Shabbos, Shamers, Bnei Israel as Shabbos, La'asos as Shabbos, to make the Shabbos for generations. Not enough that we keep this Shabbos, we have to keep a Shabbos that's going to be a Shabbos that's going to be generating itself into the future. So we found that just made it into like we're producing something, we're creating something, we're creating this book, and the book became interesting part of every Shabbos that people were reading it and looking at it, reviewing it, and we had things to add on for the next week also. We did it for many, many years. It was really,
wow.
It was magic. It was magical. It was, a very practical piece of advice, and it worked for the kids.
Such a beautiful idea. They should teach this stuff to the Chasadim and the Kalas or whatever. I guess it starts a few years later. But
and the kids are in charge of it. The kids are, they're putting the papers in, and it's not like something I'm micromanaging. It's something that this is our family. This is your project, and I'll help you. They're making it. We're making it. Nasa Adam B'Talmeinu. We're making it together. It's not me telling you what to do. It's not a power struggle. It's not an authority thing. We're making this family. We're making you're part of it. And then sometimes in the team meetings, if somebody every week we had a struggle this week about a seat. Let's figure it out ahead of time now. You agree to that. You agree to that. Okay, good. Now we settled it. We don't have to settle at the moment when we're all sitting down. Suddenly, we have to sit in seats. Oh, surprise, surprise. We knew about that for 6 days. And now suddenly we get a big surprise on Shabbos. What's a big surprise? Kids don't like surprises, and we don't like surprises. So if we decide things ahead of time, this is going to be the bedtime, and this is going to be let's work it out ahead of time. All these little details, if we discuss it and we figure it out at a time when it's not the pressure moment, then the negotiations will go much more smoothly. But if it's only at the moment, it almost never goes well. It becomes heated and out of control, and we lose control. And then and now the question is, who's the parent and who's the kid?
And it's fascinating what you mentioned about the kids kind of taking ownership over it and taking control. I noticed that phenomenon. A similar issue to the Shabbos meals, which I imagine many families have family trips, family vacations, and what the itinerary will be. And, even if you manage to make a few children happy, the odds of making everybody happy are very unusual. And we one time basically had one of my kids, who was older at that point, basically set the itinerary and make the plans, and in conjunction with the other kids. And it was basically within reason, whatever the budget was, tell us where to go. And maybe it was a much better trip than the ones that my wife and I had planned. I shouldn't say my wife, because she's really the planner. I'm not so proactive, but I don't know if it was or it wasn't. I suspect it was not so much better, but they loved every second. There were very few complaints, and I think it was much more because they felt like, it was their trip as opposed to they were dragged along and weren't consulted.
Right. I mean, when kids are involved, that's the first and earliest lesson, all of Chumash from a Kodesh Baruch Hu, that we're learning from the Havedomalo. Nasa Adam B'Talmeinu. Kodesh Baruch Hu is creating a man. It's going to make a difference in the life of the angelic and the animal physical world. And so, let's consult. Let's get everybody to contribute, to feel like they're contributing. It's not they can't come in like a dictator, a brute. It never works. We're going to create resistance. People don't want to be told what to do, but they want to be invited into the process. Before I do something with the teacher, some kind of change, I would, invite them to give me some feedback. What do you think? What would be your suggestions for this? How would we go about that? Doesn't mean I'm going to do everything that everybody says, but you take their feelings into consideration, and it says, "Wow, thank you, that's helpful." Maybe and they feel good about it because they feel like they're making it happen. They have ownership in it. Anything a person has ownership in, they're going to be much more committed to and much happier with it. So I can understand why that works. Yeah.
Okay, wow, amazing. There's so much more to cover and things that you and I had discussed in the past, but I think we'll maybe leave it, hopefully, Mr. Shem, for another time soon, I hope. I did want to ask you, if you, and I know there's nothing specific that you're looking to plug, but you have the daily 1-minute video that's on WhatsApp that people I know love, absolutely, and I myself enjoyed very, very much. I'm new to it. I got on a couple of weeks ago. Parenting lectures Thursday nights. Also, people I know. Can you just tell us a little bit about those things and what you're trying to accomplish?
What I'm trying to accomplish is I have a sign that I took from my mother's house when she passed away. This is the one that it says, it has a picture of a group of monks who are sitting around over a scroll. I don't know, from what sect or whatever, they've been sitting there. and around it is written the words, "A drop of ink may make a million think." That's at a time when I guess there was not a printing press, and if you write something, you can maybe make a difference in the world. So my personal mission statement is, it's a generic one. It's one size fits all. You can borrow it if you like. Do whatever you can for whoever you can with whatever you have while you can. So I can feel much more as I'm getting older. While you can, and so I put out a 1-minute video, which is a concentrated thought. 1 minute. It's not just and it's exactly 1 minute. It's not 59 seconds. It's not a minute and 1 second. I have a clicker that allows me to keep it to exactly 1 minute. And it's a concentrated idea that doesn't tell anybody what to think, but hopefully stimulates some thinking and puts a drop into somebody's day. There are people tell me they haven't got time for daf yomi for an hour of this. Hopefully, maybe with 1 minute, they could make a difference in their life. Just to add a little light, chase away a lot of darkness. So that's what I'm aiming for over there. And whoever gets it, gets it. And even the ones who get it, whoever gets it, gets it. And whoever doesn't get it, okay, that's okay also. So I don't have an agenda for anybody else, but hopefully if somebody wants to pick it up and chew on something for the day and think about something, or get them to think about what message they would have for a day. So every day try to do 6 days a week, because the main beneficiary is me, because I get a chance to think about something. And they say it takes 1 minute to produce a 1 hour lecture, but it takes hours to produce a 1 minute talk. And that's what it is. It's a product of many hours of thinking. So it keeps me thinking most of the day, and especially, in the morning when I'm, ready to ramp up and press the clicker. So it's a gift for myself, and I'm trying to share it with, whoever would be open to listening to it.
I love it. I'm telling you, I've seen a bunch, but I know people who have been raving about it forever, and people have to check it out. It is really, as you're describing, it just gives you what to think about, food for thought. That minute is crucial, because once it becomes 5 minutes, people won't find the time. It is amazing. I don't know how you do it.
Yeah. It'll be 1 second soon. I mean, the time is getting shorter, and nobody right now at this point anyway. Nobody doesn't have 1 minute. That's what that's what I'm thinking. I did an hour plus thing, last night someplace in Queens, and I don't know how many people are going to be able to watch it. I don't know if I would sit and watch that thing for an hour plus. After a few minutes, I'd be spaced out. Is fascinating and as dynamic as it was, but a minute, okay. Take away as many excuses as possible.
All right.
And that's what I have to say about the minute here. And then in Baruch Hashem, I go to different places. People ask me, why do you go here? Can you ever go over there? I said, the Kutzker Rebbe, when he was a little boy, so his Rebbe asked him, where can Hashem be found? And he said, Hashem is everywhere, to Mefarsh Uncle Moshe, And then the Rebbe shook his head and said, no. He was a precocious little child. He said, no, Hashem is everywhere. Where's Hashem not? And the Rebbe told me, that's not the answer. Where can Hashem be found? That's not the answer to the question. He said, so what's the answer? He says, wherever he's invited. Kadosh Baruch Hu was looking for a place for an Avram Avinu to invite him into the world, to create a space for him. The Asali Migdas for Shechanti B'Socha. I'm going to say, in that way, I'm like a Kodesh Baruch. I go where I'm asked to go. So if they ask me locally over here, we have a group of guys here in Pomona who are in the trenches, who are looking to they're raising their families, and they realize that we can all criticize our parents. It's very easy to say they didn't do this and they should have done that. But when they find themselves in the trenches themselves, they realize they respect what it's not so easy. And so if we don't know exactly what we're doing, or we don't have an idea of how to begin to do it, then challenges just come flying at us in the deepest way, in the most profound way. And so I see that there's a group of guys that are looking for tools and principles on how to go about it, and how to do a better job. It's deep, it's personal for everybody, and it's important. It's a favor for themselves, and a favor for Klal Yisrael to produce healthy children and healthy families.
That is wonderful. Okay, we'll leave it on that very, very uplifting note. Thank you so much. This has been fascinating. I really hope we can do it again. Rabbi Label Lam, mentor to the mentors for partners in Torah, the parenting lectures, principal of Munkach, and of course the daily 1 minute video, Rabbi Lam on the VIN Podcast.
Okay, thank you, Rebbe. Thank you so much for the time. Thank you.